This is Father Andrew Ritchie, and you're listening to Catholic Inspiration, a podcast from my website at studyprayserve.com. These homilies, presentations, and retreats form part of my ministry as a Catholic priest for the Diocese of Superior. And now I invite you to open your hearts to some Catholic inspiration. Today is Saturday of the first week of the year. Our gospel reading is Mark chapter 2, verses 13 to 17. Jesus went out along the sea. All the crowd came to him, and he taught them. As he passed by, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the customs post. Jesus said to him, "Follow me." He got up and followed Jesus. While he was at table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners sat with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. Some scribes who were Pharisees saw that Jesus was eating with sinners and tax collectors and said to his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" Jesus heard this and said to them, "Those who are well do not need a physician, but the sick do. I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners." So today we have in this particular passage several themes we've already seen. Jesus inviting people to follow him, that's constantly growing. You're seeing the crowd of people with Jesus. There's many more disciples now who've accepted the call to follow. But what you have here in this interaction between Jesus and Levi, very interesting dynamic. Levi, he's a sinner. He's a tax collector. He's despised by the people. And Jesus reaches out to him. What's more, Jesus and a whole bunch of the disciples are now eating. They're socializing with this crowd. They're mingling with them. And when the scribes and when the Pharisees see this, they call it out. Why is the Holy One of God being with people who aren't exactly holy? And we have this beautiful insight. Because those people, they need Jesus. Just like sick people need a physician. When our souls are sick, wounded, isolated, we need God more than ever. Simply put, God doesn't call us and God doesn't meet us when we've got it right and are perfect. God calls us and meets us when we've gotten it wrong and need God desperately. And I take great comfort in this. I take great hope in this. God meets us in our brokenness. God meets us in our sinfulness. Then you think about it in one very real way. Friends, who are we kidding? God knows our sins. God knows our mistakes. God knows our failures. But the very presence of Christ and this encounter with Levi reveals that God meets us in the midst of our broken, wounded nature. That when we have run off the rails, when we are desperate for help, help comes from heaven. And that help is meant not to just console us in the moment, but meets us where we are and then invites us to grow. Meets us in the weakness and invites us to take a path that will challenge us to become strong with God's help. God doesn't give up on us. And that there is no barrier that can keep us from God. The Lord reaches out. The Lord invites. The Lord takes the initiative. The Lord is striving to help us out of the dark hole we find ourselves in and lead us out into the light. So the takeaway for us today, the hard fact we need to just pause on, is there something, anything, that might be keeping me from Jesus or keeping me from growing fundamentally closer to Jesus? Sometimes we say, well, I go to church. I show up. It's kind of like fire insurance, We used to say I can say that, hey, I've logged time. But what's keeping me, because it's been years since I've been to confession, what's keeping me from getting active in the church and volunteering, maybe for a liturgical position or maybe to help with good organizations that are striving to meet the needs of the poor? What is it that's holding me back from committing? And committing on a level that says, you know what, I value this. I want to be a part of this. if there's something that's been separating us, something that's holding us back, remember, Jesus will invite us to follow him. Jesus will want to meet us in that social dynamic. He wants to be with us to help us grow. There's nothing that can keep us from Christ except our own choosing, to just walk away. If our choices lead us astray, the Lord will keep inviting, but the Lord won't force. But the hope we have is the door's open. We can walk through it and be with Jesus. The door's open. We can let go of our fears, our worries, being haunted by our past sins. We can let that go. And we can let God in. He came not to call the righteous, but to call sinners. Friends, what that means is he came to call us. God bless you all. This is Father Andrew, and I hope this podcast inspires your faith. Now, if you found it helpful, please share it with a friend. And you can help me by leaving a rating and a review. I keep all my listeners in my daily prayers, and I ask for your prayers in return. God bless you, my friends.